I want winners. I want people that want to win.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
You got to put your money where your mouth is, Pete.
It's not gambling advice.
Welcome to Not Gambling Advice. I am your host, Colby Olson, joined by Dusty Baker. Today is Monday, May 16th. You know we're going to be running down waiver wire pickups, streaming pitchers. Dusty, welcome back to the show, man. I think you were on here a couple weeks ago. Really glad to have you back. How's your fantasy season going? Any disappointments thus far on your team? You know, pre-show you were talking to me about kind of a mishap that happened to you. So maybe walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I did a not gambling advice, not gambling move that really blew up in my face on Sunday evening. I was blessed to have both starters, Carlos Rodon and also Adam Wainwright on my roster. Just at that time, you know, sometimes I'll bench my starting pitchers depending on categories head to head. Well, in this case, I was tied in wins. So I was shooting for getting that victory in the wins department. And I also had a lead by 1 in losses. So basically, I had to sit there and say, do I just kind of bench both guys and, you know, take what I'm given here? Or do I go for it and go for the wins category and hope I don't get a loss? Well, I felt like going for the wins was smart, but I had to go with one of two guys because otherwise my odds of getting a win and a loss were much greater having both starting pitchers going head to head. So you have Carlos Rodon, who at this time is the Cy Young leading candidate, in my opinion, in the National League, versus Adam Wainwright, who's had a couple inconsistent performances against the better team, in my opinion, in the Giants. So naturally, I sat Adam Wainwright. I started Carlos Rodon, and now I lost that matchup. So, yeah, that was a really rough end to my week, if you will. So looking to do better this week, Colby. Looking to do better.
We're always on to the next week. And I think that's something that we need to remind people, right? Is if you're out, if you think you're out of it right now at 0-5, or say you're 1-4, you're not out of it. Like in fantasy basketball this season, I was 0-5 to start the year. And I was like, you know what? I'm out of it. But I kept focusing on the waiver wire. I kept trying every single week, set my lineup. By the end of the year, I made the playoffs. Not only did I make the playoffs, I made the semifinals and lost by like 5 points in the semifinals. But it just shows that it's very early in the first month. Stay with it. Use the guys we're going to give you today to help build a team throughout the season. It's a long, long season. It's a grind. So I'm going to throw it over to you first, Dusty, because I want you to run me through your first guy you want to pick up this week.
Yeah, patience, as you said, that is key. And one guy that I've kind of been patient sitting back on, when you look at just lineups, I don't think I could be much more patient on this guy, except for Yadiel Hernandez. The numbers that he's been putting up lately, I can't sit there and let him hang on the waiver wire much longer. In Yahoo leagues right now, he is owned by 38% of leagues, which I think that number is probably pretty accurate to what you'd expect. It's not like he's had much of a starting role at the start of the year, but that has developed over time. And I will say his body of work overall has been incredibly impressive. His slash line at 337, 375. He's getting on base quite a bit. And then the slugging is really what blew me away. His 528 slugging percentage. More so also the body of work over the last 2 weeks. That's usually kind of what I use to kind of gauge where a player's at. Heading into the day of recording, 15 for 40. That's good for a 375 average. He's slugging 625 in that period of time with 2 home runs. He's getting the job done in a lineup where you really wouldn't expect much production across the board. But keep in mind, he does have guys like Josh Bell who are blowing up right now. And, of course, Juan Soto in that lineup. So there are guys that are there he can drive in or they can drive him in as well. I really liked what I've seen from him hitting in the 5-hole. That's where they've been slotting him lately. And I don't see them making that change anytime soon. He's got a couple tough matchups coming up with the Miami Marlins and the Brewers on the road. So that's one thing to be wary of, I guess, when you pick him up, is that this will probably be a major test for him to see if he really is for real this week. But it's hard for me, Colby, to sit back and let this guy hang on the waiver wire much longer because of these numbers.
Yeah, he got taken off my waiver wire earlier this week. And honestly, I wasn't even really in tune with who he was until that happened, because I honestly don't watch many Nationals games. But yeah, he slotted into that 5-hole, right after Josh Bell, right in front of Keibert Ruiz, who's actually come on as of late and hit really well. This guy's intriguing because he hits a lot of balls on the ground, but that can actually fare well for batting average. I don't think he's going to continue to do what he's doing right now, but you might as well pick him up and enjoy what he's going to produce for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And nonetheless, I mean, if he's hitting in the 5-hole in that Nationals lineup, yeah, it's not the craziest lineup, but they've actually been hitting really, really well the last few weeks, and slotted in there, he can have some nice run and RBI production. I think in terms of outfield upside, this guy definitely has a ton of upside here. I like this pick.
Yeah, the barrel rate, by the way, too, ranks in the top 81%. And so that, to me, leads me to believe that at least you're going to see this be something that maybe will be a little more consistent over time, too. You're not going to get much speed out of him. He ranks in the bottom 20% in that category, but he doesn't chase the ball too terribly often. He gets on base enough for me to find him to be relevant at this time. And he hits the ball decently hard too, nearly the top 75 percentile in that category. So yeah, I really do like what I see from him. I guess one thing to keep in mind is if you're in a keeper league, this is obviously not a guy that you're going to be stashing thinking he's going to be doing this for years to come. He's 34 years old. So he is what you might call a very, very late bloomer. But nonetheless, I am riding Yadiel, as you said, at least ride the hot streak. And beware that he is going to face some good pitching this week.
That is crazy. I didn't realize that he was 34. I frankly knew nothing about this guy. And that shows him being 34 and coming out of nowhere. The next guy I'm going to move on to is a guy that's owned a little bit more than that, 32% of leagues right now. It's a guy that I think we talked about earlier this week on the show. And Brendan Rodgers has really come on as of late and produced some really, really good at bats. He looked overmatched to begin the season, but you just kind of had to figure that was an early season slump. This guy, former top prospect, came back from an injury last year and really hit the ball well to end the season. And he's finally shown that was not a fluke. The power's there. The hard hit rate's there. I think that Brendan Rodgers, it's time to get back on the bandwagon because he was a guy that was owned in 70, 80, 90% of leagues to start the year. And now he's down to 32% ownership. If somebody dropped him, now is the time to buy before in the next 2 weeks he's going to go off. And I just love owning Coors hitters in fantasy. I know that the splits are scary, but when they're at home, they're an auto start.
Yeah, I really like this pick, and it's especially because you had mentioned, former top prospect. One thing that I've noticed over the last year or so, you've seen these top prospects. I'm just going to throw Jared Kelenic out as a name of most recency bias here, where they just really haven't been producing the moment that they've been called up. You could even say that Julio Rodriguez, up until recently, like over the last week or two, outside of the stolen base category, it's not like he's been putting up gaudy numbers either. But most of them, Bobby Witt Jr., Spencer Torkelson has just been terrible at the plate.
You got to give him like 100, 200 plate appearances.
Yeah. And I think that's the new trend. Pitching gets more difficult as the years go on. And I think that even with the top tier talent that the prospects like Brendan Rodgers can provide, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see that show up in year 1, year 2, or even year 3, right? And so you're seeing Brendan Rodgers over the last 2 months with completely different splits. Colby, I'll tell you this. On April the 26th, his average 78, 0.078. That is awful. OPS at 0.270. Okay. We're talking about a 270 guy that just doesn't even belong in the starting lineup. How about in May, he is able to get his average up over 100 points. In fact, it's at 216 right now, which doesn't sound great, but when you're at 0.078 to 216, that is a significant jump. What I like even more is you've seen the OPS jump up almost 300, actually more than 300 points in that category. And in the month of May, 370, average 370 on base percentage. You have a slugging 609. And Colby, the OPS of 979. That is definitely going to jump off the paper for you. He's an interesting guy because the ball really does pop of his bat. You can see the barrel rate has increased. The hard hit rate has increased as well. He's still working on some of those other categories. The chase rate's still a little bit low, but progressively you've seen his month of May just over dramatically take over from what you saw in April.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll bring up is that the Rockies do have a lot of confidence in him. I think people think that he's been in the league a long time, because he's been a prospect forever, and he came up in 2019. But until this year, he had only had, 500 plate appearances in the bigs. And what I like that I've seen over the last week is he went from 8th in the order down to 7th, down to 6th, and now he's 5th in this order. So they're showing confidence in him, and they want him to get a lot of at bats eventually. They just don't want to put him in a bad situation. He's finally coming around.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think that if you have a guy at Coors that has been as highly projected as him, this may be the time to buy low, as you had mentioned, especially considering the fact that those May numbers look like he may be trending in a very positive direction that can really help you be possibly a league winner right there.
Yep. Yeah, so it's all you. Go on to your next one.
Yeah, the next guy that I have, I'm a big fan, Colby, of position eligibility. Okay, I like having a guy that will cater to more than one spot. And so if you're in a standard Yahoo league, you may notice a guy by the name of Travis Demerit or Demerit. I honestly can't really tell you. It's Demerit. There you go. Travis Demerit. 5% owned right now in standard Yahoo leagues, but he takes place at second base, shortstop, and the outfield as well. So there's versatility right there. And then what I really like about what I've seen is that he's been given opportunity after opportunity with this Braves lineup that, quite frankly, has been beat up. You've seen Ronald Acuna Jr. struggling to stay healthy. Demerit has come in, and he's actually put up impressive numbers in the limited appearances that he's been given. You've seen him hit in the leadoff spot. You've seen him hit in the 7, 8, 9 hole. But no matter what, they're putting him in the order, and I think that that's something that's crucial. And you want a guy that can give you the versatility, that can also actually give you the numbers, right? Well, he's done just that in the appearances that he's made. He's 18 of 60, so he has 3 home runs. He's not going to give you speed, but he at least is going to get on base for you, hit for average. The slugging percentage has been higher than I think most people would have projected. But on top of that, if you look at what he's done early on, the speed that he's got, I think that he's going to get you some stolen bases moving forward. They just got to get him going there. And it depends on where the order obviously has him as well. If he can stay in the leadoff position, depending on the health of Acuna, then maybe you've got a guy that could possibly get you steals. But what I'm really impressed by is just the early production that he's had. You're noticing that he's spreading the ball to all parts of the field. And I really am intrigued by this guy. I think that if you want a guy that needs to fill up your backup role, he may be the guy that can actually do that for you. He started out really hot, petered out a little bit, but he's kind of brought himself back into relevance. And that OPS at 841, that's not something I'm complaining about.
Yeah, I mean, for context, this is a guy that last year in AAA hit 21 home runs in just 81 games, 300 plate appearances. And you brought up the slugging percentage, but I think that slugging percentage is not only real, but actually has room to grow. He's a guy that's hitting the ball really, really hard right now. Average launch angle close to 15 degrees. So he's hitting everything in the air. And if he's staying in the lineup, at the top of this lineup, he stole 7 bags in 81 games last year in AAA. There's some speed. There's a lot of power in this bat. And, we were talking earlier about how top prospects, when they come up, they have a tough time. And I think there's also a pressure element to that as well. And like a guy like Demerit is definitely a prospect and definitely a known guy, but he's not coming up with all the eyes on him. He can kind of fly under the radar and just kind of be comfortable in the bigs right away. So he's shown confidence straight away and has a lot of power. I think this in a deeper league, if you're in a 12 team, 14 team beyond, definitely a snag right now.
Yeah, I really like the pick. I think that moving forward too, I mean, he's only had 3 years in the league, so you're seeing significant growth with an opportunity in front of him. So maybe this is a sign to pick him up now, stash him, and use him when you need him.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next guy is kind of on the same, tune. Alec Thomas of the Diamondbacks, another rookie that has come up. He just came up last week, has only played 6 games so far, but he's owned in 13% of ESPN leagues right now. And this is a guy you need to grab. I think we talked about him a little bit last week, but if you didn't get that message then, you need to get the message now, because Alec Thomas is a top 30 prospect in baseball coming up. And this is a guy that's going to put the bat on the ball a ton, has upside for close to a 300 average, but that does not take away from that he has a ton of power in this bat. 2021, 8 home runs in 34 games in AAA. Before coming up, he had 4 bombs in 24 games. and he's already hit one in the bigs. A lot of barrels are going to find that ball. I think this guy, they have no reason to send him down. They have no reason to send him down, and he's going to hit at the top of this lineup. This is a not superstar in the making, but I would say he has as high of a floor as a lot of the top prospects out there right now.
Oh, absolutely. And what I really like about Alec Thomas, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head right there. He's got a guy that can offer power. He also offers a ton of speed. You've seen in his minor league career, over the course of, a little over 1,000 at bats, he's hit 34 home runs, 43 steals though in that time. And he also hit for average, career 309 minor league hitter. And you're seeing at the major league level, it's translating, and 368 average right now, on base percentage 400, slugging 684. That OPS is over 1,000. I mean, this guy is tearing off the cover of the ball right now. And you do have to expect, here's another thing with minor leaguers that turn obviously from the minor leaguers to the major leagues. Top prospects will sometimes go out to a hot start, and then the league will catch up to them. The thing is, even if you see a little regression here, he's still going to offer you the counting stats, right? He's a 5-category type guy. And on top of that, he's in a lineup that you mentioned. He's not going to get sent down. The Diamondbacks have been playing shockingly great baseball. I cannot believe I'm saying that right now. I was definitely dogging them at the start of the year, as everybody else was. But Alec Thomas is a reason to get the fans in the stands. He's a legitimate reason to keep them in the lineup every day, to get those Diamondbacks growing for what they want in 2-3 years from now. I don't see him ever getting sent back down. And quite frankly, I think that the average plays, even if it goes 20, 30 points down, if the league starts catching up to him. So snag him now if you're in a standard 1-year league. And if you're in a keeper league, you better be owning him.
He was already owned.
He should
be.
But,
I would compare him, staying on the Diamondbacks train. I would compare him sort of to a David Peralta type, where very high floor, he's going to hit close to 300. Maybe he won't offer the most power, but he's a 20 home run guy, close to 10, 15 bags and a good average. I'm loving Alec Thomas right now. Who's your next guy?
Yeah, I have one last guy that I also kind of want to identify. I'm a big fan of the guys that are less than 10% owned in Yahoo leagues. And so I'm going to go with the guy that's 6% owned right now. That would be Lamont Wade. The way that Lamont Wade hit last year, number one, as a Dodgers fan, he's the last person a Dodgers fan wanted to see because he absolutely torched them. But on top of that, from a fantasy perspective, this guy offers legitimate power, Colby. I got to tell you that I am pretty impressed by what that season he put together last year was. And this year he's taken off right where he actually started from last year. The average is above 300. He's already shown he's got a little bit of pop there, slugging over 500. But the on-base percentage is just mind-blowing right now. It's over 450 at this time. At the time of recording, despite the fact that his Giants are being crushed by the Cardinals on a Sunday night baseball game, his team is actually really putting together decent at-bats, and he's a key reason why at the top of that order. They're not going to move him out of that one slot, in my opinion. They do like to mix and match, so that's the only maybe concern I have, but he's proving to be a consistent hitter in this lineup, and that's 6% owned right now. If you're in a deeper league, he qualifies at first base and outfield as well. He'll give you the power. He'll give you the RBIs. He's going to get on base. I think that's a great value right there.
This is a super intriguing one because I think this is one that a lot of people forgot about because he was hurt for the first month of the season with a knee injury and just came back 7 games ago. Last year, he was a guy that hit the ball really hard, 41% hard hit rate, hits the ball in the air a ton. This Giants lineup is really sneaky. So if he's sitting in the leadoff spot of that Giants lineup, they're going to score a lot of runs, and you're going to want all the parts of that, because if he's 6% owned, our deep league people out there, this is a guy you need, because I know I'm probably going to run to my waiver wire. You probably already have him in our league. We play in a 16 team league, and you look at that waiver wire and there is nothing. You're clamoring for guys that are 0.5% owned. So, but yeah, Lamont Wade Jr., definitely a guy you need to go get right now. I'm going to stay on the Diamondbacks train for my last guy here. This lineup's just sneaky. We've said it. Christian Walker is a guy that Rowdy Tellez came on at the beginning of the year as just this masher, And I think Christian Walker is going to turn into that type. Saris wrote about Christian Walker in one of his fantasy articles a couple weeks ago and said, this is a guy that in 3 weeks is going to explode, but it's going to take time. And he has 6 bombs on the year already, 312 WOBA, 392 xWOBA, 48% hard hit rate. This guy mashes, puts the ball in the air a ton, and just hasn't had luck yet. So I'm just waiting for the breakout, but it's one of those guys that's hitting 4th in the Diamondbacks lineup, and you want to grab before the breakout.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. You've actually seen him in the past produce, big numbers. I mean, we're talking about a guy that in 2018 had his max exit velocity was 114, and you've seen the power numbers before from him. I don't expect anything different. The average, if you're playing in a league where average matters, then that's going to be your one little drop off there. But he makes up for it with the pop that he's going to give you, the RBIs. And man, if you go to his Baseball Savant page, it is red everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. His barrel rate, 93%. His max exit velocity.
He's only striking out 20% of the time, too. He's not even hurting you there. And he's walking a ton. So if you're in an on-base percentage league, he's 100 points above his average right now. So
yeah. He's valuable. I like this one a lot. And I think that you're totally right. He's going to be a guy that's going to offer you major pop moving forward.
All right, Dusty, let's move on to pitchers. Everybody likes a streamer, but everybody also likes a streamer that has some upside. So give it to me.
Yeah. Colby, you and I, a couple of weeks ago when I was on this show, we talked about the value of the 2-start weeks, right? And so there are a lot of guys out there that I think that you could sit there and say, there's a couple quality 2-start weeks. You got Corey Kluber, who's 53% owned, just a little above that threshold that we talk about. Jake Odorizzi, he popped off the page on my eyes as well. Starts against the Red Sox and Rangers. Brad Keller starts against the White Sox and Twins. The matchup of Madison Bumgarner and Tony Gonsolin, that's the Dodgers and D-backs. They also then go up against the Cubs for Bumgarner. Gonsolin goes up against the Phillies. I don't feel great about that one, but you got a couple good 2-starters. The ones that I like, though, I'll start with this one, Jamison Tiong. He starts out on the road on Tuesday at the Orioles. I love the matchup there. He's looked great so far with how he's been pitching in New York. Consistency is something that I really look for in these streaming starts. And for Tiong, he's been pretty near consistent over this last couple of starts. Against Toronto, he goes 5 1/3. He basically shuts them down for the most part, allowing only 2 runs. He doesn't get a ton of Ks. That may be the one drawback that you get from him, but it's not like he's not going to put guys away either. He strikes out 4 to 5 guys to start, but he does that twice against the Blue Jays in back-to-back starts. He gets a much easier match against the Baltimore Orioles. He did face them on April the 28th. He went 4 2/3 innings pitched. So hopefully at this point,
probably had his worst start of the year.
Yeah. So that's maybe your biggest downside with that matchup is that, he didn't even look that great and he still pitched well enough for fantasy numbers. So I think he comes back. He does much better in this matchup. Baltimore's not hitting the ball very well. Austin Hayes is hurt, so I expect that the lineup's not going to be quite as deep in that process too. I really like him in that start. And then the follow-up start is almost even better. He comes home. He faces a White Sox team that is not hitting well at all right now. By the way, Jamison Tiong only 43% owned. I think that this is a guy that you absolutely have to stream this week for both of those matchups because, you get the road against the Orioles, you get the home against a light-hitting White Sox team. You can't ask for much better from a guy that really has produced well to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 2 deep cuts this week. So you went for the 43% owned. I'm going to come with a much, much deeper cut. Here is Alex Fiedo. And you might know him from his Florida days. He was a first-round pick, had a lot of hype coming out of college. Took a while to get to the bigs. He was a minor leaguer since 2018, now finally making his debut this year. Struck out a ton of guys in the minor leagues, man. This is a guy that has a lot of upside. Struck out 29% of batters last year in the minor leagues. I think that this is a guy who now gets to face the Rays, who actually have been struggling. They're 18th in WRC plus over the last 2 weeks. He gets the Guardians, who are 7th over the last 2 weeks, and they've been one of the best offenses all year. But for a 2-star guy with strikeout upside as a former top prospect, and he's owned in like less than 10% of leagues, I am all over it.
Yeah, I really like this one a lot. In Yahoo leagues right now, owned by just 2%. So you talk about a deep cut. This is about as deep of a cut as it gets. Fun fact, you talked about his Florida days. I will never forget Alex Fiedo carving my alma mater, TCU. So there is a part of me that sits back and thinks about the times where he really stepped up in a big situation, and he's done that. He's been there. And as you mentioned, the Rays lineup has not been consistent enough for me to really worry too much about that. I think that is a sneaky pick right here. Fiedo's a guy that I've kept my eye on over the past few years because of how well he pitched during that College World Series run. He's a guy that showed that he can pitch in the big games. And I think that, he's just being discovered by some people now, and he kind of slipped off the radar of many people's radars because of that. And I'm intrigued.
It's definitely risky because he did face the Pirates in his first start, went 5 innings, 2 earned. Then he gets the A's, who are the worst offense in baseball, 5 innings, 7 Ks, 2 earned. I mean, good on him for really pitching well in both those starts, but also now he gets the real test. But I think it's worth the risk.
I think so too. I believe in Fiedo personally. I think that he's kind of one of those guys that also, we were talking about a guy that has maybe a higher floor. That's the kind of pitcher that he has. His walk rate is pretty consistent with what you want. I think that he's going to be a guy that maybe doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but he's going to get you the outs and the ERA and WHIP necessary to help at least progress you moving forward. By the way, he's 26 years old. He's been around for a while, as you had mentioned. So it's not like he's fresh up and new to pitching in bigger games in that sense.
Yeah, totally, man. It's all you. You go on to your next one, and then I'll finish us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Reed Detmers is the other guy that you got to keep an eye on. And of course, we all know about what Detmers did this past week against the Tampa Bay Rays. But I want to talk more about just more than the no-hitter. This guy has been looking much sharper. And also something that I really am intrigued by is the setup that he has for the upcoming week. So he starts out on the road on Tuesday at the Rangers, who have been just absolutely horrible at the plate. You got to take full advantage of that. Reed Detmers coming off a high. His team has been hitting incredibly well. The Angels have some kind of magic this year, and Detmers is clearly part of that project that they're creating here to become maybe the first playoff team in 7 years. I mean, that's something that I think every Angels fan has been waiting to hear for a while. Detmers looked incredible, though, against the Rays, had put out stuff. I expect him to take that momentum to Texas, continue with that forward. And then it gets not much more difficult. His second start of the week, it'll be against the Oakland A's. So you talk about 2 division rivals that can't hit the ball worth that crap. I mean, right now, I think that this is the perfect time to stream him, take him while he's high. If you're in a keeper league, you probably should be owning him already. I like a lot of those guys that, probably take the jump at them before they really progress. But I think that we've seen what Detmers is capable of doing. And having these 2 matchups, I mean, they're easier matchups on paper than what you saw from the Tampa Bay Rays, and he completely shut the door on them. So intrigued by that, kind of looking forward to seeing the start against the A's. But with the Rangers, I mean, you're talking about the 27th ranked team in that department and hitting overall OPS wise, and the A's are dead last. So great matchups for him, for a guy that is riding his absolute high.
Detmers is the 3rd top prospect from the lefty prospect group of Mackenzie Gore and Nick Lodolo. Detmers was kind of always like 3rd fiddle in that group, but really, really strong prospect coming out of the minor leagues. Really great curveball. Fastball plays up in the zone. And last year had a 7.4 ERA because he was just leaving fastballs over the middle. If you leave fastballs over the middle, you will get hit no matter what. I mean, Hunter Green is like the example for that. He throws 100, 101. It doesn't matter if it's middle. MLB hitters will find a way to smash it. And Detmers is finding a way to really find that command. I think this is a guy that you pick up. He just threw a no-hitter, so he might be off your waiver wire already, but I think it's a guy that you can pick up for the stream, but also keep for a while, which is important. Always looking for that upside. I'm going to give you a guy that is purely a streamer this week, Zach Logue. And you probably have never heard of this guy. Maybe you have. He came over in the Matt Chapman trade this winter. He's pitched really well so far in 2 starts, 1.35 ERA, 8 strikeouts per 9 right now, and he's walking just 2 per 9. I really like a 2-start week for him this week. And, again, it's a risk, but when you have a guy that's seemingly hot, I don't know how hot pitchers can be, but when you have a guy that's shown that he has some guts in his first 2 starts, I'm always happy to get on the train for the next 2 in the same week and kind of reap the benefits here.
Yeah, it is risky. It is risky, but I really like this one, actually. And the more that I've kind of looked into it and thought about it, I do think, from a simple streaming aspect, this is actually a very underrated move overall. You saw what he did already on the road in Minnesota. He goes 5 innings, he strikes out 5. He does get the loss, but I mean, that's a decent start. It wasn't classified as a quality start, but guess what he does in his next start? He goes on the road in Detroit, gets a quality start, shuts down the Tigers. He looks really good, Colby. I actually really like this pickup a lot, and he does face the Minnesota Twins.
He gets the Twins and the Angels, which 2 top offenses here, right? This is risky.
What I'm a little nervous about, but I like it because he showed already that he can go to Minnesota and almost virtually shut that team down. He's progressively gotten better in every start. If you're talking about if you're desperate for a stream and there's nobody out there, but you see Logue is out there, I think it's kind of worth the risk. I really do.
No, I think that's the situation you're in, right? This is a deep cut, and I'm not saying if you're in a 10 or even sometimes in a 12-team league to go get a guy like this, but if you're really clamoring for a stream, this is the guy to go to behind Fiedo.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I would say this too. One thing that I always kind of look for is a guy that gets strikeouts. His K per 9 is virtually 9 at this time. So you're talking about a guy that's going to get you those strikeouts, maybe not in mass numbers, but it's not like he's not putting guys away either, right? So I like the fact that he offers that. The Minnesota Twins, their offense is good. It ranks 11th right now in OPS overall in the league. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that's a team I don't want to touch at all. I think that stream is fine. I'm a little more concerned with the Angels. I think that you pretty much give him what he's got with the Twins, and then you may not want to start him against the Angels.
I agree.
That's a very, very scary matchup.
It's a scary one, and I just wanted to put it on everyone's radar. I think I lean Fiedo in this one.
Yeah, I would probably lean Fiedo as well. I like both of yours, Colby, because they're underrated. They're ones that you don't really sit there and necessarily think to yourself, man, this seems like a good situation until you read deeper into it. And once you go between the lines, it makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate that one a lot. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a league. I'm in a 12-team league. And you would think that, in every 12-team league, the waiver wire should be pretty full of options. And for hitters, it is. But for whatever reason, saves are not valued in this league enough. So everyone goes after starting pitchers. And so you can go down the waiver wire and you are legitimately getting down to guys that are 3% owned, 2% owned. I picked up Ross Stripling for a stream a couple weeks ago. That's the point of desperation I was at in a league like this. So I think there are people out there that really are desperate enough that they can pick up a Zach Logue or an Alex Fiedo. So I want to put those guys on your radar. Dusty, that's going to do it today for Not Gambling Advice, but I want to leave you with any final words if you have anything to give to the people.
Yeah, one thing I will tell you is this. Trust the fact that your conscience is probably going to be correct on these things, but dig deep into these matchups because there are a lot of teams right now that are really struggling offensively. If there's ever a time to stream pitchers, it may be right now. I think the ball is going to start jumping off the bat as it gets hotter. You may be in more dangerous territory. And I'll also tell you this, do not stream Albert Pujols, the pitcher, because he served up a 3-run home run on Sunday night as a pitcher to clean things up. Did not look good on the hill. He's much better as a guy that you keep off the waiver wire.
Oh, that'll do it today. Not Gambling Advice Monday episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Catch you next time.